Elizabeth Taylor with the heavy eyeliner, the exotic accent, the seductive beauty that supposedly brought Rome to its knees. Almost everything about that image is a complete fabrication. It's a lie that's been repeated for over 2,000 years, and today we're going to destroy it. Here's what the ancient sources actually tell us. Cleopatra had a hooked nose, a strong masculine jaw. Roman writers, her sworn enemies who had every reason to exaggerate her beauty, openly admitted she wasn't conventionally attractive. Ancient coins minted during her own reign show a woman who would never land a Hollywood role playing herself. So here's the question that should be keeping historians up at night. How did this supposedly average-looking woman bring the two most powerful men in human history, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, completely under her control? How did she terrify the Roman Empire so badly that they spent decades trying to erase her from history? The real story is more fascinating, more strategic, and more dangerous than any movie has ever shown you. Let's uncover who Cleopatra really was. Before we talk about the romances and the political chess games, you need to understand where Cleopatra came from. Because her family? They make Game of Thrones look like a children's show. Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE in Alexandria, Egypt, the most advanced city in the ancient world. But here's the twist. She wasn't Egyptian at all. She was Macedonian Greek. Her ancestor was Ptolemy, one of Alexander the Great's most trusted generals. When Alexander died, his empire was carved up, and Ptolemy took Egypt as his prize. For 300 years, the Ptolemies ruled Egypt as pharaohs, but they never bothered to learn the Egyptian language. They never adopted Egyptian customs. They saw themselves as Greek rulers of an Egyptian kingdom. They also had let's call it a unique approach to keeping power in the family. Brothers married sisters. Fathers married daughters. The family tree wasn't a tree. It was a tangled vine of incest, murder, and betrayal. Cleopatra's father killed his own daughter. Her sister tried to steal the throne and was executed. When Cleopatra was just 18 years old, she was forced to marry her 10-year-old brother. Yeah, that was the family she had to survive. But here's what made Cleopatra different from every Ptolemaic ruler before her. She actually cared about Egypt. She was the first Ptolemy in 300 years to learn the Egyptian language. Not just learn it, master it. She spoke 9 languages fluently. She studied mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, and medicine at the Library of Alexandria, the greatest center of knowledge in the ancient world. While her family was busy killing each other for the throne, Cleopatra was becoming the most intelligent, most educated, most prepared ruler Egypt had ever seen. And she would need every bit of that intelligence for what came next. At 21 years old, Cleopatra was losing everything. Her brother's advisors had kicked her out of Alexandria. She was stranded in the desert with a tiny army, watching her kingdom slip through her fingers. The Ptolemaic dynasty, 3 centuries of power, was about to end with her. Then Julius Caesar showed up. Caesar had just won the Roman Civil War. He'd crushed his rival Pompey and chased him to Egypt, where Pompey was murdered by Cleopatra's brother's advisors, a gift they thought would please Caesar. It didn't. Caesar was furious, and now he was in Alexandria with his legions, deciding which sibling would rule Egypt. Cleopatra saw her opportunity, but she had a problem. Her brother's forces controlled the city. She couldn't just walk in. Now, here's where the legend comes in. You've probably heard that Cleopatra smuggled herself into Caesar's chambers rolled up in a carpet. That story is probably exaggerated. But what is true is that she snuck past enemy lines, risked assassination, and presented herself directly to the most powerful man in the world. And this is where the seduction narrative completely falls apart. Think about it. Julius Caesar was 52 years old. He'd conquered Gaul, defeated Pompey, and essentially owned Rome. He'd met every beautiful woman in the Mediterranean world. You really think he was swayed by a pretty face? No. What Cleopatra offered was something far more valuable than beauty. Egypt was the breadbasket of the ancient world. Egyptian grain fed Rome's armies and Rome's people. Control Egypt, and you control Rome's food supply. Cleopatra walked into that room and spoke to Caesar not as a desperate exile begging for help, but as a strategic partner offering an alliance that would benefit them both. She spoke his language, literally. She understood Roman politics. She presented herself as an equal. Caesar didn't fall for Cleopatra. He recognized her. He saw a ruler as ambitious and intelligent as himself. Within months, her brother was dead, and Cleopatra was back on the throne, pregnant with Caesar's son. Rome's greatest general had just handed Egypt to a foreign queen. For 3 years, everything went according to plan. Cleopatra gave birth to Caesarion, Little Caesar, the only biological son Julius Caesar would ever have. She traveled to Rome and lived in Caesar's villa. There was even talk that Caesar might make her his official queen, that Rome and Egypt might merge into one super empire. The Roman Senate watched all of this with growing horror. On March 15, 44 BCE, the Ides of March, Julius Caesar walked into the Senate chamber. He never walked out. 23 stab wounds, delivered by senators who feared he was becoming a king. The most powerful man in the world, dead on the Senate floor. Cleopatra was in Rome when it happened. In a single day, she lost her protector, her ally, and her path to power. If she stayed in Rome, she'd be killed. If she returned to Egypt without Roman support, she'd be vulnerable to any rival who wanted her throne. She grabbed her son and fled back to Alexandria. Most people in her position would lay low, keep quiet, try to survive. Not Cleopatra. After Caesar's death, Rome split into chaos. Eventually, 3 men emerged to divide the empire: Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, Lepidus, a general, and Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man. Antony took control of the eastern Mediterranean, and he needed money, lots of it. His military campaigns were expensive, and there was only one place with that kind of wealth: Egypt. In 41 BCE, Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus. It was a power move, a Roman general calling a foreign queen to answer to him. Cleopatra's response is one of the greatest power plays in recorded history. She made him wait for days, and when she finally arrived, she came on a golden barge. The ship had golden pails, the color reserved for royalty, silver oars that caught the sunlight. The deck was covered in flowers, and incense burned so heavily that people on shore could smell her arriving before they could see her. Cleopatra herself was dressed as Isis, the Egyptian goddess of magic and motherhood. She wasn't arriving as a subordinate answering a summons. She was arriving as a goddess gracing a mortal with her presence. Was it over the top? Absolutely. But that's the point. Everyone in the ancient world was watching. This was Cleopatra's message to Antony and to the world. Egypt is not a province to be conquered, it's a kingdom to be respected. And Antony, he was supposed to be interrogating her. Instead, he ended up having dinner on her barge. The interrogator became the guest. The power dynamic flipped completely. That's not seduction, that's strategy. What happened next wasn't just a love affair, it was a political earthquake. Antony and Cleopatra became partners. Romantic partners, yes, but more importantly, political and military partners. They had 3 children together. They combined their resources. And Antony started giving Cleopatra territories: Cyprus, parts of Syria, regions of Judea, pieces of the Roman Empire handed to an Egyptian queen. He held a ceremony in Alexandria, the Donations of Alexandria, where he declared Cleopatra Queen of Kings and distributed kingdoms to their children. This wasn't just a Roman general having an affair. This was a Roman general choosing Egypt over Rome. Back in Rome, a young man named Octavian watched all of this very carefully. Octavian was Caesar's adopted son, technically Caesarion's rival for Caesar's legacy. He was cold, calculating, and patient, and he understood something important. Antony was popular. Attacking him directly would look like a civil war, Roman against Roman. But Cleopatra was a foreigner, a queen, a woman. If Octavian could frame this as Rome versus Egypt, Roman virtue versus foreign corruption, he could destroy Antony without looking like the villain. So that's exactly what he did. Octavian declared war, but not on Antony, that would be civil war. He declared it on Cleopatra. The propaganda campaign was genius. Roman writers portrayed her as a seductress, a witch, a foreign threat to Roman values. They said she had bewitched Antony with magic and potions. Sound familiar? It's the same story we still tell today, 2,000 years later. In 31 BCE, the fleets met at Actium, off the coast of Greece. It was a disaster.